This is part 2 of the Grail Path. If you haven't listened to part 1, I really suggest you do so before you listen to this video. In my first video on the Grail Path, I speak about the migrations of the Grail kings and queens from Atlantis to Nova Scotia, and that I later realized there was also another major migration that went from Atlantis to the Canary Islands. I would like to begin by reading from my article that I wrote in the early 2000s on the Guanchi, the kings, the Grail kings of the Canaries. In December of 2005, I came across some information on the Guanchi kings of the Canary Islands in the book Egypt, Child of Atlantis by John Gordon. I had never heard of the Guanchi before, but I remember having received from Thoth many years ago that the Canary Islands were a key spiritual place on the planet. The European conquerors of the islands stated that the Guanches were a, quote, highly beautiful white race, tall, muscular, and with a great many blonde amongst their numbers. Once I read about the Guanches and saw photographs of statues of their kings, I received from the Akasha that the Guanchi were remnants of the Mazur Grail tribe. The Canary Islands, or Canaria, is a remnant of Atlantis. These islands had originally been the top of the mountain Canaries, where some of the Mazur Atlanteans dwelt. After the last deluge, other Mazur and their Grail kings joined them on these now islands in the Atlantic. The Canaries Islands were chosen by the Mazur as a place to regroup and heal from the global devastation. After about 50 years, the Mazur and their kings began their migrations out from the small point into the British Isles, Europe, and Asia. However, one of the kings and his tribe remained on the Canaries Islands to hold a focus of the original seeding ground of Atlantis. It was to become a home base, in a matter of speaking, for the migrating Mazur. For several thousand years, there was travel between the Canaries Islands and the Mazur and others from the British Isles, Egypt, and other remote places. However, a combination of continuing cataclysmic disturbances and persecution of the Mazur eventually caused the Canaries Islands, or rather the Canaries, to be cut off from the rest of the world. These islands then became the Canaria, which John Gordon in Egypt, Child of Atlantis, states was derived from canis, meaning dog. Gordon states that the whippet dog was a main devotional icon of the Guanchi and sees a connection between the whippet of Canaria and the whippet of Egypt, who was part of the ancient Egyptian mystical tradition. The later lineage of the Mazur became the Guanchi, and the one king of the 16 original Mazur priest kings who remained on Canaries Canaria spawned many more kings. The 16 known Guanchi kings are the last lineage groups of these regions, according to Thoth. Now, I do want to impart here that this whippet dog, this is related to some of the other lean kind of dogs that we see, and all of these dogs were guardians of sacred places, according to Thoth, in Egypt and other places. In fact, he says that the whippet-like dog was a guardian at one time of the sacred Ankh, the true Ark of the Covenant. To continue, there is speculation to the origins of the Guanchi. Some say that they came from India, or Basque, or even North African Berbers. John Gordon writes in Egypt, Child of Atlantis, that the sculpted statues of the Guanchi kings bear distinctly Indo-Caucasian features and are very Nordic in appearance. From looking at the photographs of these statues, I agree. Further, the Nordic is the racial type of the original Mazur Atlanteans before mixing with European, Middle Eastern, and Asian tribes. The strong Berber connection is, in my opinion, not that the Guanches are Berbers, but that the Mazur, from whom the Guanchi descended, mixed with the Europeans that were to become Berbers. They mixed with a lot of people, but for whatever reason, the Berbers have maintained the language of the Mazur Guanchi. Well, I actually feel that that's because that's one of the first places they went. Not long ago, a stone was found on the Canary Islands, which has the symbols Z, N, and T engraved on it. It is said to be perhaps of a Berber origin, since historians believe the Guanches are Berbers, but nothing is truly known about it. It is my Akashic insight that these symbols on this stone give the location of a Grail chamber containing ancient records of the Grail kings and queens of Atlantis. The Basques, who are descended from the Mazur through the Guanche, are a mysterious people, as the genetics of the Basques have proven to be unique on the European continent. Their language is equally singular. In the book The Mysteries of the Great Cross of Hendaye by J. Widener and Vincent Bridges, they quote Paul Merville as stating that the Basques are survivors of the last cyclic catastrophe. The example given of Basque gravestone markers in the Mysteries of the Great Cross of Hendaye certainly bear an overall resemblance to the Guanche symbols on the Canary Islands. The Black Madonna. The Canaries currently have as their main icon a Black Madonna. While Madonnas are a product of a later era than Atlantis, they proclaim an ancient goddess origin associated with Atlantis and Lemuria before her. The Grail Queens. While there are no Mazur Grail Queens, as there had been in the days of Lemuria and Atlantis, women played a really more powerful role than the Mazur kings, but it was behind the scenes as oracles who chose the priest kings. The Uket symbol. This Guanche symbol found on the Canary Islands is the Mazur Uket, meaning rectifier, or that which synchronizes. The 3 circles represent the 30 spirit races or tribes, the island of the 30 circles, and the 3 major sea channels of Atlantis, which were created inland as a harbor with land between each of the circles. These channels were associated symbolically with the 30 spirit races as a port of entry into the 3rd dimension. And you will recall that I give information on the 30 spirit races in the first video in this series. The 3 triangles set in a triangular formation represent the 3 world realities which Thoth has referred to in my past Akashic translations as the 3 millenniums. These millenniums do not represent 100 years, but 3 specific divergent paths for the human experience on planet Earth which interact with one another at certain stages in evolution. The point where the triangles meet is the place of entry into the Atosic universe of complete wholeness. There were also 3 pyramids aligned in a similar manner on Atlantis. At the point where the pyramids touched was the chamber for travel between the 3 or millennium reality zones. The Canary Islands are really full of portals, cavern areas with sealed chambers. It contains some of the Mazur kings in suspended animation. Not too many, but there are a few there. I've never gone into it with Thoth, so I can't get detailed on that topic. But there are a few. And I will discuss in a further video in this series the reason why there are so many suspended bodies in this particular way on the planet. But suffice to say that there are some there on the Canaries. So there are a lot of mysteries and special things going on in those islands. I'd probably like to do a video just on that someday. But right at this moment, I really don't have a lot of information on the details of it, other than what I've shared with you here today. I do feel that I was able to capture the essence and sometimes very close likeness of some of these Grail kings and some of the more prominent oracle females. So I'm just going to share a few images with you here that I created in Midjourney, which is the AI art medium that is coming forth now on the planet. I work with this medium by actually being a medium. No, I tune in to the AI, and I actually feel I'm communicating with it while I'm doing the wordsmithing required and the codes required to get the images. It's not a simple process if you're looking for something specific and not just a nice picture. So I worked pretty hard on these, and I'm just going to show them to you right here. When Osiris arrived on Earth, he came in a star Merkaba and landed on Mount Sinai, along with Isis and some of the other good company from the Blue Star. Thoth came later and at another location as Thoth Muzurud, and then later than that as Thoth Racemus of Afra, but he was born on this earth as Thoth Racemus of Afra. However, Osiris, like Thoth Muzurud and Isis and some of the others, came directly from the Blue Star. Osiris and Isis had their son Horus. However, Osiris had other children by other women. Now, this was not some kind of a, infidelity thing, because these were genetic engineers, but they were doing so in a highly spiritualized manner. So Isis was white-skinned, or rather lighter-skinned, but several of the women who bore children by Osiris were also black, and they came with him into this realm. As you can go back to Melchizedek, Melchizedek had females that he procreated with. Well, so did Osiris, but he brought some select women with him because there were no black people on this planet until Osiris arrived. Not of the Solarian, not of the what we understand as human beings in that evolved state, even that. And so Osiris, with Isis and with 3 other females he brought with him, procreated and established the first original children of Osiris. These children of Osiris, the first lineage, Thoth refers to as the Kincha. After that, of course, they went into many races and mixed with many people. And at one point, early on, some of them mixed with the Melchizedek, Mazur. So then you would have the Mazur children of Osiris. The Guanche were very colorful people. They dressed beautifully in brilliant colors, and their ceremonies were elaborate, but yet close to the earth. They were not primitive by any means. These were the royal ones from the Solarian rays. And like the Melchizedekian branch, they carried themselves with spiritual elegance and a great wisdom and understanding of the universe. Yet they were also, well, the term comes to mind to me, those of gypsy hearts. I'm not saying that they were that nomadic, although they were nomadic, but then so were the Melchizedekian branch, the Mazur. And when they commingled with the Mazur, they spread even further into the planet, different regions of the world. But the gypsy heart means that they were just gay and had an especially strong love of life and very close to nature. For this reason, I am portraying them here in my art in a very colorful and expansive way. This concludes part 2. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for part 3.